How is back in the woods today? This is the woods that a few months ago, remember I was turned around and suddenly found myself in a part of the woods I didn't recognize. There was just like a strange atmosphere. Well, today that's probably going to happen. There's a funny atmosphere today. Not a bad atmosphere. It's just odd. There's a real sense of. I was down by the beach, and the sea that's usually normally crashing was like glass. It was like glass, and there was even birds sleeping on it, and the the clouds were just very strange and dead and stagnant. So one of those days of absolute stillness, but it also feels psychologically and psychically weird. I feel like I'm in a dream. I feel like I'm dreaming. It's like I'm not really here right now. It's very strange, and like there's a very it's in other ways it's quite beautiful being in these woods with this kind of unnatural sort of sense of dissociation from reality. Even when I went back there was like this cluster of mushrooms. I took a photograph. It kind of sets this theme. These are the kind of days that there's a veil between the worlds, and you see things in the corner of your eye, and you have these sensations very much like the Thomas Sheridan channel the other night, the second hour of VON. I did a thing on cryptids, and a friend of mine posted that she loved the video in England, and she said that it reminded her of being out in the woods and having those experiences. Well, today is very much one of those days in the woods for me here. Now, uh, I spoke the other day about the idea of creating avatars, a substitute for the self or for the other, in order to focus energy on that rather than directly on the individual or yourself, because it becomes almost like a sponge that soaks up the energetic forces going towards it. Now, there's another kind of avatar, and it was brought home to me this morning. I was reading an article written by an Irish associate professor about the Greta Thunberg and the whole climate thing. And there was absolutely no person in this article. It was pure dialogue, pure ideology, pure boilerplate statements that use cliches about the topic, and then the usual elements of hypocrisy. So she was saying things like anyone who had a problem with the climate marches the other day, hates children, hates Greta Thunberg, is a middle-aged man who hates women and is a racist. And literally says this. And she's associate professor, and the only way she's going to get to be a professor is by going the full level and becoming. That's how she gets there, by emulating what the state requires. Now this is not her. She does not believe this, and I'll tell you why she does not believe it. I guarantee you that she will rattle and rave about we have to change for climate this and climate that, and reduce carbon this and reduce carbon that, and she will still go on her foreign long haul holidays this year, and she'll go into her academic conferences all over the world without in business class without even thinking that should be an issue, because her belief in the climate change thing is not born out of a belief in cognitive contemplation and understanding of the topic. It's purely ideological, and therefore she creates a dissociation in her mind where the ideological avatar, is the one who talks about how sexist, racist men are destroying the planet by taking long haul flights. But she herself takes long haul flights. But she's not the avatar of ideological possession, and that's who's responsible, not herself, and therefore it's not hypocrisy. It's a very interesting form of dissociative identity disorder, a compartmentalization of the self, because the avatar has no sense of the self. All it can do to hold its integration and structure is is dogma and ideologies. That's the only thing. Now I saw another this whole client. Now why are you saying what's this on an occult channel for? Because this is all tied in with the occult. Look, psychology and the occult have a long history together. Carl Jung and Maslow and Laird. It goes on forever. And this thing, so this dissociation, this avatar of ideological possession is the one on the article making the statement, but the person herself is not responsible for this. And then one of the things you notice about the ideological avatar is that it's full of hypocrisy. So, for instance, she starts off by saying, the planet is being destroyed by white, rich, middle-aged men who are afraid of women, and then goes to cite a female journalist who was mocking Greta Thunberg and the whole movement, and so she instantly contradicts herself in the first sentence, and then she offers no solution except the ideology. So, for instance, like if someone was to come up to me, there's a problem with the climate and pollution. What do you do about it? And cars are causing it. I would say investment in mass public transport systems. And here, everywhere, like every minor road in the country has a frequent bus service. Give people and make public transport extremely affordable. Subsidise it. So a trip in public transport costs no more than $1 or €1. And, within a commuting distance. And heavily subsidised. That will get billions of people out of their cars. That's a solution. But they never offered a solution. The solution is the government thing. Now, I have a few people I know, work with, and friends, and just from my social circle, who went to the climate march the other day in Dublin. All of them were civil servants. All of them. Because public sector workers don't get paid for the day. And, they have to keep working. They're civil servants who exist as a kind of public sector workers, exist as a kind of an enforcement agency for government and globalist policies. They're all there, and they all drove down to Dublin in cars, all on their own. So they didn't take public transport, they drove there. And it says, why didn't you take public transport? Oh, the car was handier. The avatar marched in the climate march, not themselves. Therefore, there's no hypocrisy. Now, this is I saw this in another post on Facebook last night. There was an article about the expansion of Dublin Airport getting another runway, making the airport even bigger, which is a great airport already, but it's going to have even more flights. And as someone who flies a lot and takes advantage of cheap airline tickets to give you this work, not because I'm going over to sit on the beach getting drunk for a week. I do work. I bring you content. That was good news for me. So I wanted the article on Facebook to see when would the runway be open and all these new services coming in. And there's a guy there, and he said, so much for our carbon emissions policy. Is this government really green, or is it just talk? And I had a look at his Facebook page, and his photograph was just like a typical meat golem. He's like a smug, like I'm a clever smile. Public servant, of course, or a public servant, university educated. And all his little, I stand with Greta, all these like platitudes all the way down, LBG, all the cultural Marxist platitudes. And yeah, what was photographs of him? Norway, Cape Town, Bali, all over America, France, India, Thailand. His avatar had a problem with the runway. His ideological avatar had a problem with all these extra flights and cars. But he himself, who flies everywhere, sorry, it's raining a little bit. He himself, who flies everywhere, he's not responsible he's not a hypocrite, because his ideological avatar is not the same as him. That's in the magic and the occult, that can be actually very useful and very interesting, because this dissociation can create a kind of say you're brought up as a Christian, and you think that all this stuff is devil man stuff and evil and satanic. Well, if you push that ideological avatar of Christianity into the avatar, then your body can concentrate on doing the occult things. So it's useful too in that sense, but that's not why these people do it. It's the strangest form of dissociation. Now, I don't have I'm not left wing, I'm not right wing. That's all bollocks to me. But at the same time, too, I can see things that the left put forward that I think I would definitely believe in, such as universal healthcare. I can see things that the right wing put in, like smaller government and things like the hard capital punishment for vicious criminals. I'm totally down with that. And I'd say that's libertarianism, but also libertarianism is also worships government. It's one of the problems I have with libertarianism. It ultimately worships governments. So there's nothing. I wouldn't be into any of that. I'd be more of kind of like I'd be like an anarcho-capitalist. I think that capitalism is a great mechanism for uh, generating change and good things in the world and giving people opportunities. But the problem is we don't have capitalism now, we have corporatism. And corporatism is absolutely the same thing as cultural Marxism. It functions in the same global thing. And this is why these people, the same thing that these you have these lefties who all support George Soros and the big commercial banks. You'll have these lefties saying, the capitalism has destroyed the world, but we must be against Brexit because Brexit will mean all the financial institutions will leave London. The avatar. The ideological avatar. It explains so much about the life in the world, doesn't it? It explains the meat golems perfectly. It explains them perfectly. It explains the hypocrisy of people in that regard perfectly. The idea, the Catholic priest talking about how, we must have the family and marriage, sex before marriage is wrong, and then they bugger children. Because the one who's buggering the children is not responsible for the ideological avatar. Now, what happens is that's very common. That's very, very common. We all do that to a certain extent. But then you go to the level of ideological possession, and that's when it gets really frightening. Now you can see the idea. You can see that a lot around that around Greta Thunberg. There's people who claim who would run skeptic groups, uh, debunk everything as mental illness that's not mainstream science, and yet they're worshipping Greta Thunberg and her mother, who claims they can see carbon in the air. As woo as it gets. What? Because the ideological avatar. Now, this is the extremes of things such as Bolshevism and National Socialism, things like the Khmer Rouge, Pol Pot, these death squads, these youth death squads. If you've never seen it, look for a video called "Tomorrow Belongs to Me." It's from the movie Cabaret, I think, and there's a little brown shirt singing. He just stands up in public and goes, "Tomorrow belongs to." I saw so much of that with the Children's Climate March, and also reminded the Children's Crusades of the Middle Ages. The same thing, that tomorrow belongs. And even that academic talking about middle age, it's a bounty. It's a bounty on anyone over a certain age and a certain demographic. It's a bounty on them, and that was central to things such as the Khmer Rouge and Pol Pot, the year zero idea that everything starts over again from year zero, and we shall not have leaders except we'll worship Pol Pot. This kind of thing, this idea. Now there's a film on YouTube. It's actually quite anti-Semitic. It's one of the reasons I don't like it, is because it comes from that angle. It doesn't stick with the facts. If it stuck with the facts, it's called Under the Sign of Hermes, I think, and it's about the involvement of the banks and the Freemasons within the creation of the Bolshevik revolution in Russia. But I warn you now, it's got interjections in it from a movie that was made in Russia, and this is not American propaganda saying the Soviets were evil. This is the Russians making films about their own history. And it shows a dramatization of these ideologically possessed types just brutally murdering people, including loads of young people in a cellar. And they're stripping them naked and just brutally gunning them down. It's very difficult watching. But this is what happened, and young girls begging for their lives, and some guy who's ideologically possessed by Marxism going, this kind of thing. Probably because he asked her out on a date 5 years before and she said no. You see, this is why mental illness is a very big thing within Marxism and extreme left-wing politics. It uses the mentally ill. There's a book called The Psychotic Left. It's not perfect. It has a lot of weird stuff in it as well, but it talks about things like the massacres of, you know, anti-Bolsheviks in cellars in Budapest during the Hungarian Revolution, and just like this, they were talking about like going down there and their feet sticking to the ground because there was so much congealed blood from all the executions and brains all over the floor. And that's what happens. This is the ultimate end of ideological possession. It becomes absolute possession, and therefore you see the avatar, the ideological avatar has no sense of self, right? The self, the person who has that, does. When you get total ideological possession, the sense of self is lost within here, and the ideological avatar compensates by moving back in to substitute the now lost self, with an absolute fanatic. This is what cults do. This is why you see cults saying things like, my old family, my parents, my friends, my old friends, they're not my friends anymore. This is my real family. This is my real family. And you'll have them saying things, you have a cult situation where someone will say, well, okay, you believe in the cult and you're a member of the cult and all this, but at the end of the day, that guy or that girl was always nice to you, and they just want to be friends with you, and there's no conflict there for you personally. And they'll say something like, just because I missed him in my life doesn't mean I want him in my life. And that's a cult mentality. Or I should have them in my life. That's a cult mentality. And this is the whole thing. This is the ideological thing, that the collective, the mind of the collective creates the avatar that replaces the self. It's very, very common, and happens to decent people too. That's the most terrifying thing of all. It doesn't happen to assholes. You think of like the ass. Like I always say, what's the definition of a community activist? The local asshole. The local asshole looking for attention. But but a lot of people who become ideologically possessed are actually decent people. I mean, this is the weird thing about it. All you need is to weaponize the fears within them. This is why I always tell people to be pagans, to study magic, to stay away from books. Don't be like the people of the books. Remember, there's no difference between handing up the Bible and say, "Ye shall be judged. Ye shall be judged on Judgment Day," and holding up a copy of Das Kapital and go, "The proletariat will rise up and take control of labour away, take the means of production away from the bourgeoisie." It's exactly the same thing. Communists, Marxists, and fundamental Christians are all people of the book. And even the climate change thing, you had the inconvenient truth, Al Gore. Now, let me tell you this is why they become insane. And let's go back to the airport thing, right? Have you ever heard any airline talking about climate? Ever? Airports are being expanded all over the world. Airlines are buying new airplanes. Routes are being expanded. How? They would not be doing that if some punitive punishments were coming down from the globalists on them. Why? Because the globalists know it's not true either. It's the latest control mechanism. Also, why do the likes of Obama buy $13 million worth of oceanfront property if the sea levels are going to rise? Remember, a 10-foot rise in sea level could essentially wipe out all the low-lying populated areas of the world. Why is Florida, why is Holland, now you talk about the dikes in Holland, but Venice, why is Venice still firmly above water? Why is Venice investing in new infrastructure and everything? And we're not talking about dams or anything like that. We're talking about new infrastructure. Why is it? Why are there low level? Why is Israel not worried about it? Israel is one country that could be flooded tomorrow by a sea level rise, because so much of it is below sea level, more than even Holland, and they don't seem to care. It's because the globalists know it's not real. That's what it is. And the whole thing, the whole ideology has been created to manipulate the masses towards any kind of government control. Any kind of government control. So the irony is, even government itself is ideologically possessed and has an ideological avatar that says, We are the control structure. We are the establishment. We are the elite. We own the banks. We own all the big property developments and ocean developments. We're building by, like, you go to Dublin, right? There's fucking skyscrapers flying up right by the harbour. That should be the first place to be flooded. And who's building them and buying them all? The Saudis, the City of London bankers, all the top investment people, even rock stars are living down there. That's because they know it's not going to happen. It's all lies. It's not going to happen. So they say that, and then they create the ideological avatar. And the ideological avatar would be like someone like George Soros. He's the ideological avatar of the control system. He goes around the world implementing almost like he's the Pope of platitudes. That's what he is for these people. And they have no. It's amazing. It'll always be amazing. But the thing is that this is why people say, when are we going to wake up the sheeple? When are we going to wake up the masses? And from all aspects, lefties, when are we going to wake them up? Right wingers, when are people going to wake up? Truthers, when are people going to wake up about the elite? They're not. You know why? Because they are the elite. Their ideological possession in the form of an avatar is who most of them are today, created by mass media. You read my book, The Anvil of the Psyche. Mass media, which is a form of spellbound witchcraft. That's why the news begins with din, 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 action news at 10, Trevor McDonald, boom, you're fucked, boom, your sister's fucked, boom, your community's fucked, boom. Now, the first news story, very serious, very painful, hyper-adrenaline rush. Oh my God. The scientists say that by 2022, most of Europe will be under seawater. And then the stories get progressively better. Your adrenaline levels reduce down. And then it gets to the final story, which we go. And now it's over to Kyle at the sports desk. Hi, at tonight's game, you're feeling a bit more, sports, something's regularly playing, something's regularly happening. My team didn't lose this week. And there's nothing wrong with following sports. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But it's all, when it's done, for most people, it's not a genuine love. It's their sport, their team loving avatar that's into it. And then it goes to, and then, hey Mary, how's the weather going? Well, here you go. What kind of weather do you have for us tomorrow? Oh, she's given, well, we got some nice sunshine. You feel a bit better. And then they finish with a good feel-good story. Today in Parkersburg County, we had the annual, chicken pot pie festival, and we had the best, and everyone, it's all back to normal again. And the endorphins start changing, the adrenaline level stops, the heartbeat stops, and you go, but you become addicted to that. The 1 o'clock news, the 6 o'clock news, my fix, the 9 o'clock news, my fix, 24/7 action news. When I make that funny character Parker Cookman from Action to Hysteria Weather, that's what I'm parodying there. The chemical changes that are created me by mass media. And that's why you'll never wake them up, because they're all addicts. They're all addicts. They're all addicted to this. They're all addicted to the point now where they all are 50% themselves and 50%, which is exactly what the control system wants, the ideologically possessed avatar. Now, I hope I didn't annoy you with this video, because it's a little bit political for this channel. It really should be on the other channel. But yeah, there you go. I feel like I'm on a kind of a buzz lately. There's a nice kind of energetic flow coming out of me, and I'm starting to see a lot of things with clarity. And so this is, the ultimate message from me has always been, right? Get knowledge, understand how it works, right? Develop the tools to have a psychic firewall. Don't fret about it, okay? Just appreciate nature, appreciate your loved ones, appreciate beautiful things, art, your hobbies, okay? Right, do that, and then have a laugh. Laugh at the absurdity of it. Like that Doctor Who Dalek song that I made the other day. Just enjoy life, have a giggle, have a laugh. This is important. If they can't take a joke mantra that I came up with, or I think I probably heard from someone else, but that I use all the time, right? That literally is my call to insurrection. And the insurrection is to rise your consciousness up, to regain the self from your ideological avatar, which is the one that's causing you all your neuroses and problems and issues in life, and to restore yourself back to the self. So that's what that really is. And this is why humor is so important, creativity is so important, and appreciation of all things nature, natural and beautiful. Like many of the people that would have been on that march for the climate and the environment would never come here. They wouldn't even know how to get here. They wouldn't even know how to get here. They wouldn't even know about it. They wouldn't even think about it. To them, to them, communing with the environment is watching a David Attenborough documentary on the BBC, because uh, the 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 ideological avatar is extremely narcissistic. It thinks it knows everything, and it's basically becomes a bully of the self until it eventually crushes the self. You're at war with yourself, and then you're no longer yourself. And that's always been the occult battle there, is to never allow the ideological avatar to replace you.